Welcome back, everyone. So, let's continue with the next part. So, if you talk about today, the plan for today is, even though if you again very highly, very quickly just revise the last classes, right? We was guys discussing about the DNS services, right? So that is called Route 53. But there's some more thing because the last 2 days, my last two classes, I was actually trying to explain you the concept of DNS and some of the term related to DNS. And then I'll show you how to not configured, because DNS is the one of the managed services by AWS with the help of a service called Route 53. So you don't have to configure the DNS server or the master DNS, or I can say authoritative DNS services. Everything is configured for us and managed by AWS. But the thing that they don't know is which domain we would like to, which domain database, or technically here it is known as a record, we would like to store in their DNS. So that's what we have to host there. So for hosting the domain, we have to host the zone there. Okay, so if you want to host the domain, technically that there they use the term called zone hosting. Okay, and if you want to create a database or the record, that is actually known as a record there. But guys, my last class, we have hosted the zone or the hosted the domain, and that is actually a public domain. Okay, so my today's plan, guys, is I'm going to show you how you can host the private domain in the DNS. Okay, and obviously if you go for public domain, you have to first buy your domain name and you have to invest some money on this. Okay, but if you want to do some kind of practice on the DNS, or if you have some kind of private network, okay, so you don't have to buy a public domain. You can create your own personal domain name, and you can configure your own personal DNS for the private one. Okay, so what I mean by this, I will explain you some of the use case, and then I'll show you how to configure the private or how to host the private domain in the Route 53 services. This is one of the guys topic we are going to discuss today in detail. Then there's some more routing policies we have left in my last classes in the Route 53 geolocation or maybe latency or other routing policy, guys. I already explained to you the simple routing or maybe multi-value routing or other policies we have discussed already in my last classes. May fail over, but some routing policies we have that again we will see with some practicals. This is my next topic. Then we have one discussion on one concept that is very much useful and almost every time we keep on using, especially in the EC2 services. It is not at all related to DNS, but in most of the practical guys, this concept is very much handy for configuring the EC2. So I thought to take this small topic also today, and finally we will go for global accelerator. So these are the 2, 3, 4, 5 topics we have in today's plan. Okay, so let me start one by one. Okay, so the sequence would be, I will first start with the metadata server topic, then we go for private, then this part, and then the global accelerator. Okay, so let me start. What is the metadata, or what is the meaning of meta server or metadata server? Okay, so you can think in this way. Everyone know here one simple thing that is about EC2 services. Okay, you guys know about EC2 service. So what I'm doing here, I'll go to Mumbai region, for example. And guys, whenever you launch any instance, okay, when you launch an instance, so let me go and launch one instance very quickly. Okay, let me use this Amazon Linux. And guys, because I am the tenant of the cloud services, means I am the client of the cloud, and this is the portal provided by the AWS. And from this portal, As a client or as a tenant, we are provisioning this particular instance, or because we are configuring or provisioning this instance. So for our perspective, we know which VPC we are provisioning, we know which subnet or availability zone we are using, which public IP we are enabling or not, or if enable, which public IP they are assigning to us, how many network card we are attaching, right, and other thing also. Okay, so as a user perspective of of my account in AWS, we know lots of information about the instance. Okay, or a lot of data we know, even though we know about the name of the source also. For example, let me give the name called OS, let's say 10. So we also know the tag or the OS name, and plus we also know which security group we have attached to this particular instance, or which key we have attached, or which public key or private key we have attached. So as a user perspective, we know lots of things about this OS. But if you go and understand as a OS perspective, and if you try to go inside this OS and ask this OS, ask this operating system, and ask, do you know which instance type you are using? We know by chance T2 micro. Or if you ask this guy, do you know which availability zone you launched on, which region you are using here? Even though if you try to ask this instance, ask this instant, do you know your private IP? Obviously guys, private IP is belongs to the OS, so OS know their own personal IP in their network card. You can run if config command to see their IP address. But if you know, if you ask this OS, do you know your public IP? Okay, so guys, you guys know the VPC class. I told you already. It look like this public IP belongs to this OS, but this IP is actually associated with your internet gateway. So as a OS perspective, they never know their public IP. So they never know which VPC they are in. They never know which security group or which key we have attached to this guy. Okay, so all this information we can see, we can see, but this particular OS, if you go inside this OS, you won't find this information anywhere. None of the database of this OS, or none of the file RAM memory part of this OS uh, has maintained this information. So all this information about these particular EC2 instance, Amazon behind the scene maintain their own database and have all the information about this OS. For example, one of the information is public IP. One of the information is which AZ they are running. One of the information is which region they are right now belongs to. So all this information, guys, Amazon is stored in one database. Okay, and what this database contain? This database contain the information about this instance, and that kind of information, guys, is known as metadata. So Amazon, guys, behind the scene has created one meta server or meta data server. And inside this metadata server, they keep all these information. And from that metadata server, actually, the application, this is the Amazon application, and this particular application or app, retrieve those information and present it to you here. Okay, so if as a user or tenant, if you want to see any information about or any metadata about this OS, we can just go to this portal, or maybe we can use AWS CLI command line that you guys know. There we can use describe command to pick all the information. But there's sometime there might be a requirement that from this OS, okay, from inside this OS, I would like to know my public IP. I would like to know my availability zone, my region, or maybe XYZ. Okay, so whatever Amazon has provided to this instance should know. Maybe there might be some requirement. You have to write some Perl script or Python script, or maybe Ansible script, or any XY language script. And when this script run, the script will do something for you. Maybe my script will try to find out which AG you are running on. And if you are running on 1A, then I will install this version of the software. If you are running in 1B, then we will install this version of the software, and some other like this kind of conditions you would like to apply in your script. But technically your instance doesn't know which region they are running on. So for example, if I go and connect to my instance, and if I ask uh, within the instance, because instance is like the operating system, and if I ask this OS, can you please tell me which particular region you are running. So this instance has no idea, even though they don't know their public IP also. That part I already told you guys in my VPC class. They only know their private IP, because private IP belongs to their own network. So in this instance has no idea, even though this instance also don't know they are running on the top of AWS cloud, because this is normal Linux instance. Maybe they are running on the top of Docker, they are running on the top of a local virtual machine. They have no idea where they are running. Okay, so obviously there's no meaning that they know about these information also. Okay, but so it means if they don't know about these information, or within the instance, if you have some kind of requirement come up, you want to run a script. And obviously guys, when you run this script will run inside this OS, and this script will try to take some decision based on the region, based on the available region, or maybe sometime based on the public IP, or maybe XYZ information. Okay, so for this what can we do? So by chance guys, AWS has provided one facility from this EC2 instance their metadata server. First of all, this metadata server running into the private world of the AWS. From the outside world, we won't able to connect. Okay, but if any of the instance, for example, EC2 is running inside the AWS private world, okay, so these instances has a capability to connect to the metadata server. And because this server, obviously, this server should have IP address. Okay, so the default IP of the metadata server, that is obviously configured by AWS. You don't have to go there, and obviously they don't provide to log in to that particular server, but they give a IP address to us. And the IP address that is fixed for the metadata server is this one. So this is the fixed IP address. In this IP address, they have running some kind of server side program, or maybe I can use one term here. They have provided certain APIs. So anybody who know API, you can think API is one kind of program. Okay, and every program is doing something for you. So for example, one program will go and fetch the AG name, one program will go and fetch the region, one program will go and fetch the public IP of this instance. Okay, so you can think per instance they have created a metadata server for you that running within the AWS environment, and this is the IP address they are using. By chance, anybody who know networking, so we have a public IP, we have a private IP, we have a loopback IP. So IPs is divided into multiple different name for multiple purpose. This kind of IP that we use in the private world, and that is has a access only from the private world. My router never route uh, these IPs. Those IPs normally start from this range, are known as link local IPs. Okay, so it is been already automatically configured in some OS also. So this kind of IPs range is known as link local IP. So it's not important for this discussion, but I just wanted to give this term to you. Even though if you search what is link local IP addresses, you can see any IP that have this range known as link local addresses. Okay, so AWS use for some reason this link local addresses. One of the reason is this IP range is run within your network. Okay, so it won't go out of your network. Because if you use private, they can go out to the different network with the help of router, but these IPs your router never route to the different maybe private network also. This might be one of the reason, right? But it's not important here. The important point here is they give the this metadata server this IP address. So what can I do? From my instance, I can connect to the metadata server to pick these information. And how can we do? Pretty simple. This is my instance, and from here I can go and connect to this IP 169.254.169 and 254. And here they are running some API. Normally API work on HTTP protocol. And for connecting this any of the API on the command line, we can use curl command. Okay, and here guys, they, if you see, they show you lots of name here. Okay, so these are different versions of the database you can think. Okay, and they are talking about these are different versions, and different version have different kind of information they are storing. And every month or year, depend of the version, they keep on updating the database with new fields. So what I'm talking about is not again important. Okay, but what we are looking for, we would like to connect with the latest version. By chance they doesn't give the name here latest, so by chance it is here. So I just want to connect with the latest database. Okay, and if you now connect to this particular API, or maybe you can say this particular folder, what you will see, okay, they are maintaining three different information. Okay, and if you are interested to look on the metadata information, especially like public IP easy of this OS, then you can go to a folder called metadata. You don't have to remember, you just have to remember this IP. Otherwise you can see the metadata folder they show you here. Or I can say metadata API. Again, here they show you inside this metadata they have multiple folder or multiple program, and this program is called API. And one of the program is very clear is public IP. So if I go to this program or this URL or this API, okay, this called public IPv4. So so guys, technically my OS never maintain my public IP in AWS here, right? But my my from my instance, I can find my personal, my own public IP. See here, and if you try to compare this IP with this IP, so here it is exactly the same, same. So by this URL, you can find. Or maybe if you want to know the instance ID, okay, because instance ID is just ID of the instance managed by your AWS application here. So maybe for some reason, if you want to find out your instance ID, something like this, okay, something like this, you can find from this URL. Or there's a lot of folder, guys. You want to find your public keys that is managed inside the AWS, events, and tons of information. So almost all the information that you normally see from this portal, almost all the information we can pick by these APIs. Okay, for example, there's um, one of the folder called placement. So if you go inside the placement, is again one of the folder. Okay, and if you go inside the placement, you will see some more new APIs come up. And by obviously by looking at this API, right, region means region, right? So from here we can find that this OS can find that I am running in AP South one, and that's what guys we launch here. So we launch this OS on AP South one, that is, you guys know, is Mumbai. Okay, so we can see here, even though we can compare, it is running in AP South one. Or maybe if I go and see the availability zone, if you see, this is one of the API. Okay, availability zone. So we can find our every zone is 1A, or maybe every zone ID is this one. So they have some extra IDs also that normally you can see here from here also, or maybe you can go where you can find somewhere. Okay, so so technically, this metadata server is very much useful. Okay, so that your OS can figure out about their own information or metadata information, so they can use or they can use in some script. Now from this, maybe for example, I just want maybe sometime when you launch the OS, you always randomly put in 1A or maybe 1B, maybe 1C sometime, right? So I will have to check by some script in my OS that if you are running in 1A, okay, then do this. If you're running 1B, then do this. So for this, we can first find out which AG they are running. And this information I can store in one variable. Or this variable we can use in some script. Okay, so example, let me store this guy into one variable of X. And guys, by chance, anybody who by chance know Linux, for example, there's a command called date. And if you want to store the output date in one variable, it is not the way to work. Okay, so guys, this is the cell, and X become the cell variable. And if you want to print the value of X, you can use $X. But my intention is not to store date as a string. My intention is to store date command output. And for this, one of the syntax you can use is dollar parenthesis and the command. So when you use dollar and parenthesis behind the scene, first they run the date command. They find the date output, and this output they store in X variable. And now if you try to print the X variable, you can see the X contain the output of the date. Same thing we can apply here. Okay, so I can store the entire command in the parenthesis with dollar, and let me store this is my AG name. I'll just give any variable AG name. Okay, and now if I try to do dollar AG name, we come to know this is AP South one. And now we can write further code of a particular language, maybe shell scripting here. And by chance, my shell name is Bash. So anybody who know Linux, or maybe if you guys know shell scripting in the Bash language, we can write further condition. If you are in one end, then do this. If you are in 1B, then install this version of software. If you want 1C, then use this particular network interface or network line. So lots of planning you can plan, right, while configuring this OS, because idea is pretty simple. Why we are using this OS? Okay, why we are using this OS? Because I want to configure this OS for something, maybe for databases, for mail server, for LDAP, for DNS, or maybe for web server. Okay, but before I configure, I would like to take some decision, and based on the some decision, I accordingly that particular software or version of the software I would like to configure and set up here. Okay, so these variables or this command or this API endpoints, I can say, or URL, gonna help me to take those decisions. Okay, this is one of the thing, guys, about the metadata. So whatever information you guys want to pick, I have given you the approach. Just go in here, find those information and use if you want to use somewhere. Okay, this is one thing. But one more interesting thing, metadata server provide to us. Okay, and that is called user data. User data. So this is, guys, one more interesting facility metadata server provide to us. Okay, so what I mean by user data. So you know what, guys, if you want to install any operating system, I told you multiple times, you need that particular operating system image. So if you want to launch the OS in the Docker, you need Docker image or container image. If you want to install the OS in local machine, like in VirtualBox, so you need ISO image, but you need some kind of image. But if you want to launch any OS, right, especially in the cloud product, maybe Azure or Google Cloud, or AWS Cloud, or maybe private cloud like OpenStack or Eucalyptus, something like this, right? Okay, so you need an image, and that image is called cloud image. Okay, that's typical called cloud. They have multiple different formats. They have, by chance, AMI is one of the format that we use in AWS Cloud, but otherwise they have some more formats available. For example, QCow 2 is again one of the format. So likewise, there's a lot of different formats available. There's a different point, but these kind of format of the image are normally known as cloud image. But why it is known as cloud image? Okay, so one of the interesting thing in the cloud image is, okay, first of all, these OS are pre-installed OS. Pre-installed. What I mean by this? So guys, till date, I don't know have you realized this part or not. Till date, whenever you launch any instance, you just launched it, you never install it. Okay, so anybody who have installed Windows or Red Hat Linux or any Linux, normally when you install it, you have to boot from the DVD. Then initial screen come up, you have to select the language, you have to select the partitions, storage, tons of things, or set your root password. And then after you select, then your system will install. Because your system is installed, so it take 30 minutes, 20 minutes, depend upon which OS you are installing and which softwares you are installing. Okay, but guys, this thing you never see here, because all these images, the images is a pre-installed images or pre-installed operating system. Okay, so somebody has already installed Red Hat for us. Okay, and they put the Reddit in one box, in one file, and that file is called image. And they say, if you use this mi image, it is pre-installed, or operating system, we will directly start the OS. Okay, but before we start the OS, what we will do, this OS that is already installed, I will first copy the entire file or entire image is actually like a file, in your hard disk. Which hard disk? Your root hard disk or root storage. And guys, here the role of root storage or root, EBS volume come in play. Whenever you guys install the OS, we have to provide 8 GB or 30 GB storage to the OS. So what is use of the storage? Technically, they are doing nothing behind the scene. They are copying this image that keeps somewhere into this hard disk. That they are copying. Okay, and how much time it consume in copying? That much time, guys, they take here to installing this OS. So initially when you launch this, you say 1 or 2 minutes they're consuming, right? And launching. So in 1 or 2 minutes, what they're doing, they're just copying this image right in your root hard disk. So they're not installing because they're pre-installed. So normally 99.99% in the cloud world, or any of the image that we use is always pre-installed, come with different formats. There's a different point. Okay, but all this format image is come with the pre-installed OS. Okay, and because they're pre-installed, so after we copy, they have to just only start the OS. This called boot. Boot the OS. And guys, when you boot the OS, boot means, for example, this OS stop, right? So somebody copy this OS in my hard disk. So this OS come up, and behind the scene they click and boot the OS, or I can say start the OS. And guys, whenever you start any OS, I don't know have you have you seen this or not. For example, in my case, my Red Hat Linux is starting. Okay, and they're booting. Okay, so behind the scene there's a lot of program is running, even though it's not visible. But if you press escape key, escape key, one minute, they are actually booting. So if you press escape key, you can see there's a lot of program behind the scene they are starting. So I can say this is the boot process. Okay, because this is my local machine, so I can see this boot process. But if you want to see this boot process in the cloud, so that doesn't provide you this black screen or terminal screen, or the, I can say, the console screen of your cloud OS. So it is harder to see the boot process, but some cloud give you a way. So for example, if I if I go to my screen here, and this is the OS, just now we booted up. So after I select this, and if I go to actions, or in the actions, and there's some settings they give you. 1 minute. So 1 minute. Yeah, get system logs. Okay, so if I click on get system logs, so here, guys, they show you the boot process. Okay, so in the cloud, when you boot this OS, okay, so they initially start this OS, and then kernel, and if you guys know Linux, fstep file, and lots of program behind the scene, they are booting up. A lot of drivers of the kernel. So from here you can systemd is a program they're booting up, and a lot of services they're starting. So by chance, some of the system cloud provide you a system log, or I can say the right word would be boot log. They provide you here. So this boot log is sometimes very much useful if something happened in your boot process. Okay, because this OS is installed by somebody, or after we install, maybe we add some more thing in the OS, or we configure some more thing in the OS, and after we configure, we restart the OS, or maybe after restart, the system crash. So this boot process log maybe sometime very much helpful to troubleshoot why they stuck, and where they stuck. So accordingly, we can properly troubleshoot this OS next time. Okay, or maybe other purpose you can use this boot logs. But why I'm explaining this concept here, because whenever you use any cloud image, they also come up with very one specialized program. Okay, and that program always run in your boot process. Okay, and the name of that program is called Cloud Init program. So if you say my image is a cloud image, it means 99.99% this image is pre-configured with Cloud Init program. Means as soon as you install the OS, technically now they're not installing, they're just copying the data from one file, that is they keep in there some of their storage, some of their storage, and into your root hard disk, and they see it installed, but they're not installed. They just copy behind the scene, and after they install, they boot it. But while booting, there are multiple program right related to OS, but one extra program that almost all the cloud images come up with, the Cloud Init program. And what is the beautiful thing about the Cloud Init program? Okay, the beautiful thing about the Cloud Init program, this program has a capability to configure your OS on the fly, or configure your OS at the time of boot time. Okay, for example, if I launch my new OS here. Okay, and guys, this is the, for example, Red Hat Linux, so they doesn't come with what come up with Apache web server. So why you launch this OS? Because you want, after you launch this OS, you would like to configure Apache web server. Okay, so either you just launch the OS the way we launch always, and then connect the OS with putty, or with connect, or SSH protocol. And after connect, you manually go and configure the OS. But after the OS launch, we have to configure Apache server, or we have to install this software, or we have to create some file and services. Okay, your requirement. So what can you do? Here you can take the help of Cloud Init services, and say, while my OS boot, this service always run. So I'm telling you, okay, while booting this OS, or before you give me the login screen of this OS, okay, I want you help me to configure this OS at the boot time. Okay, and what I want you please go and create the folder, or create the account, or create the Apache server. Okay, and so how you come to know what exactly I would like to configure. So all my information I will store in this database. That's called user data. But you have to just go there, pull the commands, pull the configuration, what I need, and after you pull all those command and the configuration, just please run for me. And obviously, guys, if you want to do anything in the OS, you have to run the command. So I will give all the command in this program. For example, if I want to create a folder, I can give the command mkdir / some folder name. So my Cloud Init program will go and download that command name, and from our behalf, they will run those commands in this OS at the time of boot. And that easy reason, if you again go and see the uh, log of any of the OS, any of the boot log or system log, and if you see, guys, in the last, they are running the Cloud Init program. Cloud Init program. Okay, see here, lot of guys see time you see Cloud Init program, and they finally finished. Okay, maybe Amazon has created this image, uh, uh, this image, and they are also asked this in the Cloud Init program to do something. One of the things they are doing here, they are downloading some private key and putting in this file. So that is the reason, guys. I can public key here. I can say that is the reason we can use this private key to log in. So who store a private key or public key? I say public key, or authorize my public key in AWS. Okay, so again, Cloud Agent is a program they are downloading from here, and from where they're downloading, user data, and user data is a part of metadata. So even though, guys, I show you my metadata, there is one API or program called SSS key. From there, they are downloading and putting somewhere, so I can log in. So any of configuration that on the fly in your OS in the cloud automatic done, or you also want on the fly, or on the fly means at the boot time or boot process you want to do, right? So then you don't have to configure the cloud in it. It's a by default nature of all the cloud image in the world. Right, if any of the OS normally I can say, or any of the cloud related images I can say. Okay, you have to just tell which command you want to run, and that command you have to put in your user data. Okay, so right now because I haven't put any command in my user data, okay, so it means if you again go to your that OS API, one minute, let me again connect to my this screen. So if you go to this um, uh, API of the metadata server and ask this guy, do you have any user data for this OS? Because we haven't configured. So even though, let me show you. Okay, so let me go for latest. Okay, and if you see guys here, they have a separate API for the user data. Okay, user data, and if you see guys, there's nothing is there, is not found. Otherwise, they show you something. So this program says nothing is there. Actually, this lines means not found, because we haven't provided any user data from our side. Some data maybe Amazon provide, they have maintained internally, but from our side we haven't provided any data. Or I can say, okay, the right word would be we haven't provided any command, or better would be I haven't provided any script. Because normally here you have to provide a script, because obviously guys, if you want to configure any OS, maybe at the boot time or after boot time, automatically you have to provide a script. Now it is your choice, you want to provide a script in which language. Okay, so if you say your OS support a language called PowerShell, especially in Windows, or Bash Shell, especially in Linux, or Perl, or Python, or Ruby. Okay, whatever the guys OS support the scripting language by default, you can create a script in that particular language. Normally, because this is a Linux OS, and Linux OS normally support Bash Shell script, so these are normal support. Normally, all the Linux provide. Okay, so we can provide our user data or a script, same thing, right, in a language called Bash. And where we have to provide, so we have to provide at the time of launching the instance. Okay, so what I mean by this, so what I'm doing here, okay, I'm going to launch one more one more operating system. Okay, and let me go for again Amazon Linux. This part you know. This part you know. So guys, over here we are not going to select the subnet. They will automatically select one of the subnet. But now after we launch the OS, my OS know how to pick or how to find the subnet name if they require somewhere. Okay, but what I want when this OS launch, I would like to provide my user data or my script. And for this guys, you have to just go down in this page where you put your network name, and if you go down this page, there we have options to provide. Either you can give your script name, choose the file, create a script in a local system, upload here, or you can directly write the script. Or let's say my script in Bash shell. So Bash shell is a way. If you guys don't know Bash shell scripting, it is just like a normal command. So I can just say mkdir click a folder called my data folder. So all the Linux command that you know normally, you can type here. Okay, but my intention here is to configure Apache server. So you guys know we can configure Apache server with this command. Okay, so yum is a command to install it, or -y means I don't have to say yes or no. The automatically conclude I am saying yes. Okay, and you guys know in the Apache server, normally in this file folder we create this file. Okay, in this file, if you want to put some data, we can use take the help of echo and say hello, and we are storing this data in this file. And normally then we always start the service. So in this system, we use systemctl command to start the service. I also want my service to be permanent, so I can use this command enable to make my service permanent. So after next reboot, my service it will always start. So what is the guys normal commands you always run by yourself manually after you launch the OS? You can run all those command while launching the OS. Okay, so this command is stored in a user data database. Okay, and who will pick my cloud init program will download this command, and from our behalf they will run this command in this OS. And the good thing is they will run this command with the power of root account, and then root is a user in the Linux that has a unlimited power. So you can give any command here. You don't have to apply sudo. But one thing you have to tell here in the top, this called cbang, means which interpreter you want to use or which scripting language you want to use. So anybody here guys done any kind of scripting language, this is the first line we always write. It's called cbang or hasbang, um, where we always define which interpreter we would like to use. Otherwise, they might not work. Okay, so we are updating our metadata server, and inside my metadata server, we are we are um, uh, uh, putting some user data. So guys, this time what you will see, okay, as soon as you OS launch, as soon as you OS launch, automatically your web server configure. You don't have to manually configure the web server. That's what you will see extra. Now it is your choice what you want to configure. So let's say web auto something I'm just giving here. Okay, let me enable all traffic so we won't see any issue in the connectivity. So this time after I launch, you will see it will automatically configure. Obviously guys, if you go to normal OS, and if you from here, if you try to see software is never installed by default. Okay, but this time in this particular OS, okay, so if you go and check the live system logs, this is called boot log. Okay, so my OS is booting behind the scene. I just keep on refreshing. This is booting. Technically, they're not showing anything because I told you guys behind the scene what they're doing here. They from their some of their storage, or I can say AMI repository, they are copying this image. After image copy in your root hard disk, then they start booting. And when they start booting, then the boot log will create. And when the boot log will create, you will see a log start coming up here. Okay, and when the log start coming up, I can see the boot process. It is the same process that I try to show you in my local machine also here. This is the same kind of uh, log they show you here. Okay, but but this time here, what you will see, as soon as the OS launch, you will automatically have uh, your Apache server configured. So my this OS is still initializing, and guys, this is the meaning of the initializing. Okay, so when you see this message called initializing, it means technically they are trying to tell you they are copying the thing behind the scene for us. Okay, this is one of the part of the initializing. Okay, so I'm just waiting, and after OS come up, we'll see something. And now it means it means if you want to configure this OS, either you manually log in, configure it, or maybe after you log in, run your script, or anybody who know Ansible, after login, run the Ansible and make your system as a target node and configure it. And now we have one more way. Okay, we can configure this OS at the time of boot process with the help of cloud edit. Then also we have to write a script in some language. Maybe anybody who by chance know Ansible, somehow you can also integrate with Ansible also. There's a different point, but we can do it. Okay, but because this is script, we can run any of the command. And my command, one of the command may be my curl, and using the curl, we have a capability to connect to my metadata server, and from the metadata server, we can figure out that particular time AG region. Because right now, guys, you know what? When I launch this OS, okay, we even though we don't know this OS launch in which AG. Okay, so by chance, if I go and check somewhere, so this OS is launched in some of the AG. Okay, so if you go and check in this instance, so by chance we also don't know. which, because I say just go and find out by yourself. So maybe in my case they'll launch in 1A. Okay, 1A. But what I want, maybe I want, if my OS launch in 1B, do this. If I launch in 1A, install this software. So I can write in my script conditions. But before we write the condition, we have to first curl and find our respective uh, data center name. So herewise, we can use the help of this concept that I was talking to you. This concept. So we can use this curl command on the script and find out the things. So I'll just give you very quick a small demo for this, but in there we can also type those things. Okay, so now this OS has been done very quickly. Let me go and check the system services. You can see cloud init run. Okay, so they are not if you guys see here, that's what they've done, right? We asked to we asked to install HTTPD, and you can see, guys, cloud has installed HTTP software for us, and we asked to enable my service permanent. So this is a normal message you always see when you enable your service permanent. Okay, so guys, whatever we ask to install uh, cloud init services, they have done for us. So from this log you can figure out, and this log is very interesting. Why? Because this log you can see in the future. If something is failed, you just come here and check why it's failed. So this is useful log for us. But now uh, when you connect to this OS, obviously you will see your web server is configured. But let me very quickly check. Okay, let me first log into my root account, and if you see here, the software is installed. If you go to this folder, this piece is pre-created with hello, and if you see your services, it should obviously running. Okay, it means you don't have to manually log in now. So you can rely on your script, and we know because the script already tested, right? And we know they will obviously configure our system. So we can just directly use our public IP and give to our client and say, just go to the system and you will see your data. Okay, so that's the one thing. One more small thing here. Now, if you very speedily do the curl, okay, again to the same metadata server, what my intention here to show you. And now, if you go and search for user data, now you guys see here all the command that we put in the user data command. Okay, so this is the URL where you can if any of your always want to find which commands is being run by the cloud init services at the time of launching, so they have shown to you if they are interested to see. Okay, that's, guys, this is the exact command we have written. Okay, now one more small thing I just want to do here. Okay, what I want, whenever anybody come to my page of the website, okay, my website page will show me, hey, I know your public IP and I know you are in the region Mumbai and this is your data center name. So this message I would like to print here, and this message will dynamic. Why I'm dynamic? Because every time when I launch the OS, my the name of the AG might be different. Well, my public IP will be different. And then we don't know which public IP will gonna come up. So I want, I want my OS will print the current information about the OS. Okay, and for this you have to create this page. Which page? This page. But right now in this page we have put the hello, but we don't know which IP come up, so we can't put the IP here. So what I'm talking about, guys, here we can take the help of the curl command. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by this. So if you can go to metadata folder, and here you guys know in the placement you guys know over here by this script your respective current AG come up, and you guys know we can put this guy in one variable. You guys know this one. Okay, and if you run the echo $x, they give me variable, but now I will redact this output into a file. So now this file will give me my AG name. And what AG we put in this file name. So whenever anybody refresh this page, they will get my AG name. So, so by this kind of concept, right? By this kind of concept, um, I can make my script maybe run by Cloud Init, but dynamically. Okay, dynamically. Right now I'm just printing here, but if you know scripting or any other requirement you have, you can write the conditions here. If you're A1A and do those something like this, you can do. Okay. So what I'm doing here, nothing special. I am. Let me do this. So I'm going to write one more script, and this script will go and install Apache server for me. Okay, then they go and store one variable, let's say X variable. Okay, and here, by chance I can't copy, I believe, I have to manually type. They contact to 169.254, 169.254, and they go to latest data, then metadata. So I'm just typing exactly this one, placement. Maybe this URL is big, but you don't have to remember. Just use the pros that I showed you already. And availability. One minute, where it is? Latest. Latest. 1 minute. What I'm trying to tell you, because this example gonna help in some other practical in DNS. That's what I'm creating here. Otherwise, there is no technical reason. You can also try. Ability spelling. 1 minute. Ability hyphen zone. Okay, so so this one will store in X, and I'll say my echo can you please print this one and store this guy into a file called HTML, because this is my home page. And same thing I'm doing one more time, and here I would like to retrieve my public IP, because I want to show maybe for some reason a public IP also. Okay, so my public IP is where it is where it is there, right? Oh, sorry, public IPv4. Okay, so I'm also storing public IPv4 in one of the variable, let's say IP variable. And again, I'm asking echo command to print this, and then finally store this guy in this file. So this file will have both the information. But this symbol, you guys know, it will overwrite the file. So I would like to append. So just try do symbol. Okay. So this will store the AG name. Let me use AG. Okay. And this will store your current IP or public IP here. Okay. And finally, I would like to start system CTL, my services, HTTPD, and plus enable. So this is one pretty simple, straightforward script we have created here. Okay, that's all. Now, whenever I would like to launch my OS, I will copy this script, and that's all. It will work for us. And now we don't have to configure our web server. They will pre-configure for us. Okay, so now what I'm doing, guys, here, I'm configuring 3 instances in 3 different regions. Okay, why? Because next topic, that is the DNS. Okay, and this will gonna help us, because in the DNS I am going to explain you some routing policy. Okay, and one of the routing policy that I'm going to explain you is geolocation. And for this practical, okay, and to show this practical, maybe this skill might help us. Okay, so what I'm doing here, so what is routing policy? I will again explain what is geolocation. I haven't explained yet, but I will explain you in a minute. Okay, but what I'm doing here, because this script is ready, and my plan is to launch my plan is to launch 3 instances. Okay, so if I very quickly go and search AWS global infrastructure, Okay, and you can find some images of the AWS global infrastructure over here. One minute. So like this kind of diagram we have seen multiple time. Let me randomly pick one of the image here. Okay, so what I'm doing here right now. Okay, I am going to launch two or three instances. So one of the instance, guys, I am going to launch right now is in is in Singapore. Okay, so one of the instance I am going to launch in the Singapore region. Okay, and this would be my web server. So you guys know how to launch the instance and how to configure web server, but here to save the time to configure the web server, I am going to use this script. This script will automatically configure the web server in the Singapore. And some of the instance, guys, I would like to launch in some European city, maybe in Japan here. And one of the maybe instance I will launch somewhere here in the US. Okay, so three instances I'm launching. All are the web server. Let's think you are MNC, and you have a multiple existence of your company, and some of the server you launch in Japan region, or some of the server you launch in Singapore region, some of the server you launch in Canada or US region. Okay, like this. So why you launch multiple instances in multiple region? Maybe you have more client in US or more client in this area and this area. Okay, and you might have very limited client, maybe in India, maybe in Europe, or maybe in Africa. So there's no meaning to uh, launch the server, because when you launch the server, it comes with a lot of cost, right? Maybe if you use AWS, but they come with cost. Okay, so what's my final intention here is, okay, my intention is very simple. Okay, my intention is, if somebody from India, by chance we don't have any web server in India. Okay, we have one web server A here, same exact copy of web server B here, same exact copy of web server C here. Why exact copy? All the servers configured with the same script. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain you, I will explain you in a minute. But before this, to save the time, let me set up this in a moment. So I'll go to Singapore, and here I am going to launch a new instance. New instance. What happened? Yeah, this one. Everything same. They will pick automate the subnet, and public IP I want because I can want to see the connectivity. But I am asking this guy to configure this instance with this script. Okay, that's all. Okay, let me give the name called DNS one. So I'm doing some DNS demo here. Okay, and for security group, let me allow all traffic, launch. And guys, now understand one thing, because now we don't need any key to attach, because we need a key to log in, right? And why we want to log in? Because we have to we have to configure it. Now we don't require to configure. My user data or my cloud in a service will automatically configure this guy. Okay, so there's no need to attach the key. Okay, so I'm going without the key. But understand one thing, guys, if you don't attach the key right now, there's no option again come in the future to attach the new key. Okay, so there's only option left uh, would be to delete this instance. Okay, so you can properly plan. If you think your script is tested, you don't want to configure anything else in the future, then only go for proceed without the key. So we can pretty sure my script should oh, come on, why they say blocked? Let me go to Virginia. So because every region come with some kind of limited limits. Actually, I show you already, guys, limits. So there might be limit in the Singapore region. My limit might exceed, or I don't have a limit maybe in this account. DNS1 security group. So I'm going without the key. Okay, that's all. Okay, so my instance will launch, and if my script is right, that is right, maybe there might be some spelling mistakes maybe, but it might look like right. So you will see what are the IP they provide you. They provide you to this instance. Okay, and if you go to this IP, you will see your web page come up. Right now my instance is actually booting up. Okay, so it won't show you, but after the boot up, the page will come up. Okay, and after page come up, my script is okay. Then same thing I will do in two more regions. So what's your plan? The plan is, let's say you have let's say this is Virginia region. Okay, so you launch one system here, you launch one OS here, and you launch one OS here. Okay, and one of your customer from India want to see your website. And guys, uh, you know one thing that is very but obvious, because both the three system are the different system, and because I want all the system will have internet connectivity, so all system will have some IP that is a public IP. So let's say this IP is 1, this IP is 2, and this IP is 3. So you guys know this is not good practice to to give all the three IPs to the customer. And first of all, I don't want my customer will use the IP. I want they will use a domain name, or I can say the FQDN or the host name. So I will provide the host name of the website. Or let's say the host name website is www.vimal.com. Okay. And guys, whenever this system or somebody from India, let's say, type this host name, okay, obviously this system will go and contact to the respective master or the authoritative DNS that I already explained in very detail. And this DNS will give the IP. Now the point here is, okay, point here is this DNS, right? We have a create a record that www having the IP1. Okay, plus www also having IP2, and www also having IP3. Okay, because we have a three IPs running having the same website, or my client can reach to any of the IPs because all the IP has the exact website. They can reach to any of the IP. Okay, now point here is they can go to any IP, or because we have the internet, they can see the site. But if you want to give a client a great user performance, right, what you want, obviously you want obviously you want, if your client is from India, and by chance if my DNS use a concept of load balancing here, because load balancing is again one of the routing policy in the DNS. So maybe one of my client will get the IP3 from India. And in this case, from India, my client will go via internet network, and they reach to this IP in the US. And guys, understand one thing: they will go via internet network. And why I'm again emphasizing on the internet or public network, this concept, guys, gonna help a lot in the global accelerator topic. Okay, but DNS, guys, never help. DNS will give the IP address, and now in your laptop, whatever the internet provider you have Vodafone or Airtel or AT&T, whatever network you have internet, you will follow that internet network and reach here. Okay, so technically you will see the website, but because you're from India, why you have to go to this long distance? Because obviously if you go to long distance, a lot of delay come up, or a lot of latency come up. And guys, we have already discussed about latency in my initial classes. Okay, so what we want, we would like to give a client a service where they have a lesser LS and low latency, less delay, low latency. And but always, if you want to go for low latency, so if you talk about India, so the nearest city or the region from the India would be Singapore, if the website are in there. So what I want my DNS will take some intelligent decision. Okay, and if my website domain has 3 IP, so they will dynamically find the source location of my client. And if they found the source location, let's say in this example is India, where the client is coming, okay, and Singapore is the nearest city or the country or the region for that client, okay, so I want my DNS will give the IP2, the IP2 belongs to Singapore, or because they give IP2 to my client. So obviously, guys, behind the scene, the client browser always connect to the IP, so they will automatically, by helping their public internet connection, they will reach to that IP. Okay, so there they will get a less or low latency or less delay. Okay, so if you want this kind of infrastructure to be created, okay, here you can take the help of a DNS and ask the DNS, I want, you can plan your route, or it's called route policy, okay, where you take a decision, not for the failover, not for the multi-value, not for the load balancing, the way we discussed in my last classes. You have to take the decision based on the latency. So a latency is one of the one of the um, one of the routing policy exist in the DNS. Okay, so that's what, guys, the meaning of latency routing policy. Okay, so that is one of the reason why I'm establishing, launching some instance here and maybe some instance somewhere else. Okay. So let me show you the demo. So guys, if you see the output come up, it means my script is good. And the good thing about my script is they automatic figure out my public IP, even though we can see public IP exactly same. And they also figure out US East one means they are launching in US East means in US. So my dynamically my script working and figure out some information. Okay, so my script is good. Let me launch one more instance. So I don't know where I have the um, let me try Tokyo. I don't know I have the limit there or not, but let me check very quickly. So guys, whenever you create a new account, Amazon give you a limit. In Virginia, you have to ask other region for the limit. Let me check very quickly, and how to check the limit. You guys know already. Just go here, and by chance, okay, in this instances, okay, I don't have a limit, so I can't launch the instance yet. So no issue. Let's go and launch the instance in Mumbai. Uh, you can understand by this region also. So I'm launching two instances. One is in Mumbai by chance, and one is in US. I already launched. So again, I'm configuring. I'm using the same user data. Okay, and done. Then this is again DNS. Two. I'm just using some name here. All traffic, and we've already checked, so we don't require any key. So that's okay. Without the key, we can launch. Okay, so now we have two instances. One is in Mumbai region, or one is in US region. Now, interesting thing is both the IP has the same website. Okay, same website. So I want, I don't want to provide this IP to my client. I would like to give my host name. Okay, but now understand one thing, one more small information about the DNS. Okay, if you want, let's say this is your IP. Okay, and if this IP is a public IP, and now you guys know the meaning of public IP. Public IP means anybody across the world using the internet connection, they can come and reach to this IP. That is the meaning of public IP. But if some of the computer, let's say, have this IP, that is, let's say, private IP, and you guys know, if you use private IP, nobody in the world, in the internet world, can reach to your IP. They can't. Okay. So if nobody from the public world or internet world won't able to reach to your IP, that is called private IP. So who can reach to the private IP? Okay, the guy who is within your lab subnet or within your network, or the guy who has connected the switch to this IPs. So anybody who within your network, okay, they can connect to the private IP. So this concept I already explained you my my VPC classes. Okay, similar concept, guys, we have in the DNS. If you give any computer a host name, or I can say a domain name, because guys, host name always it's a part of always your DNS name, domain name, or I can say the DNS name. Okay, and if your domain name, okay, is a public domain, so it's the same concept. Anybody from anywhere in the world can come and reach to your public domain, and they can connect with this domain name. For example, www.google.com is a public DNS name or public domain name or host name, and that is reason anybody in the world can connect to www.google.com or maybe lwindia.com. This is our website domain name or the host name. Okay, so guys, again, domain name come with public. If you give any computer public domain name or public host name, okay, I told you guys my last class, this statement is not right actually. Technically, we can't give any computer domain name, but normally we say this, right? Domain name. So for example, one of the domain name is google.com, so we never provide this domain name to the computer. This is just a, like in network world, we say this is the network. Network name we never give to computer. We always give the host name to the computer, or host an IP to the computer. Similarly, the google.com is a domain name. We never provide this name to the computer. Inside this domain, we give multiple hosts, like maybe www, maybe mail.google.com, maybe station1.google.com, something like this. So this is actually a DNS name, or this is actually the host name. Sometimes somebody say this is the whole domain name. This is not the perfect statement. So I don't want you guys to be confused with this name concept here. But here, if I say domain name, I normally mean to say host name. Okay, so if you give any computer domain name as a public domain name or public host name, okay, anybody in the world can connect this. But if you give any computer a private domain name, I mean, how to give a private domain name, I will show you today. For example, one of the example of private domain name, let's say example.com. So you can also give this computer a private domain, let's say hello.example.com or station1.example.com or server2.example.com. Okay, so if you give any computer a private host name or private domain name, okay, so within this network or within your subnet, and you guys know within the VPC, anybody can connect to each other with the IP or with the host name also. So this is one of my practical today. I will show you how to set up the private DNS domain name. Okay, and so obviously it's come with free. Like for example, for private IP, you don't have to pay. The same thing. Private domain name, you don't have to pay. But if you want to go for public IP, you have to pay. If you want to go for public domain name, you have to pay for that domain name. And why you have to pay? Because it is unique for you. Nobody in the world will get the same name or same IP address. Okay, so the guys in the last class, when I use my route 53 services, we bought one public domain name. That is the reason we have to pay the fees per yearly basis by chance in the AWS. Okay, so why we pay? Because I want anybody in the world from anywhere they can reach to my domain name. They can connect to my domain name. But for this, we have to create a database or the record in the route 53. So if I go guys directly to route 53, but before this, if I show this this OS also, so now I can see guys this OS will print their public IP and their region name. This called Mumbai. So we have two server running, one in US, one is in Mumbai or India. Okay. Now if I go to my route 53 services, and here I already hosted my zone that I purchased in my last class. So if you remember guys, in my last class, we have registered a domain, or I purchased the domain. This is called rlinuxworld.com. It's a public domain, and I hosted this domain or this zone. Host means I'm asking my Route 50 service, I would like to take a service for for the DNS. And here we have created some 11 record in my last classes. But in the record, we use multiple different routing policy: failover, weighted, simple, multi-value, and all. I explain every policy in very detail with all the practicals. So, but today my plan is I have two IP address, this one, and I would like to give my client, not the IP address, some name. Or let's say I would like to give my client a name. So I'm going to create a record, and my name is, let's say, um, um, uh, um, l dot rlinuxworld.com. Okay, or maybe LAT. So there's just some name I would have to give. But I want, when my DNS will provide, when anybody come to my DNS with this name, my DNS will give either this IP or this IP. Okay, but I don't want they will do a load balancing. Okay, I want they will check the lowest latency. So their routing policy, okay, would be the latency. So these are the different routing policy we have discussed almost all, but right now I'm discussing about the latency. Latency. Okay, and here I will give these IPs. So this is my public IP, and I can put here. Okay, so my DNS will give this IP. And right now, if you see here, this IP is US IP. Okay, so if anybody come to this system, my DNS will give this particular IP. Or let's say in my DNS I have only one record. Anywhere in the world come to this name, because DNS has only one record, so there's no meaning of latency and see the decision they have will always provide this IP to us. So example, right now I'm in India. So if I go to this name, for me the nearest computer is this IP because there's no other IPs available. So obviously for everyone this is the nearest. Okay, so this one, and if you after this you have to select the region, which region this IP is right now running. Okay, so we know this is running in Virginia, North Virginia. Okay, so we have to select which region this IP right now working on. Okay, and just give some name. So this is a US web. So you can put the health check also. How to put the health check, you guys know, but let me change the TTL record also, so that my caches will clean very faster. So this concept we have already discussed in my last classes, caches, a TTL, all the things, right? And let me create the record. But before I create the record, let me go to my command line in the Windows, and if you do ns lookup and search for let.r linuxworld.com. So you don't find any record, okay, because this record is not yet created. But after I create the record, after I create the record, a new record come up. Okay, and now if you do is let r linuxworld.com. Normally it takes some time because guys, why this error come up. There's one more TTL concept in the DNS. If you take some record and go to DNS, it will go to local cache server. I told you already, the forward to main server, and the main server say I don't have a record. So again, don't come to me for some time. Okay, and keep this information in your local cache. So this is also, guys, one kind of TTL. If you don't have a record, your local server or local cache server, in my case is my modem, keep this information that they don't have record, and this kind of record they maintain. But after my local cache server clean the cache, they again go back to main this DNS server, and now this DNS server have a record. Then this will. So you have to wait for some time. I don't know how much time they have that cache information. Okay, but they'll become this practical guys I always show you. Okay, so right now what I'm my plan is, even though if I copy this IP here, isn't reached, because again my browser also going to my local DNS, and my local DNS doesn't has local DNS say this information we don't have. You wait for some time. So we have to wait for some time, and then it will come up. Okay. So by the meantime, guys, my local caches remove. Yeah, let me check one more time. Okay, local cache remove, because we know the IP is working good. There's no challenge IP, so it should also work good. Okay, so you have to wait for some time, or by the meantime, guys, let me explain one more concept, so it will save our time. Okay, so yeah, somebody here say in the chat message that in it working on my system. So guys, if you try to use this name in your laptop, it will work. Okay, it will work. So I don't know, guys, maybe most of guys are from India, and some of the guys also from multiple countries. Anybody right now who type this host name, you will see only this site. Only this site. Even though we are using latency policy here, but because I have only one side running in only in US, so DNS can't help you. DNS will say I have only one information, so wherever you are in the world, I will give this IP. Because they are giving this IP, so everybody guys see US East one. Okay, because my local DNS cache is different. You are using your modem, and your modem don't have that cache. So if you guys hit this uh, host name right now in your computer, you will see this website. Okay, because you have a local, your own personal cache server. Okay, but I don't know how much time they will keep. Okay, this is one thing. Now, so let me guys go for the next practical, because I believe I believe I've checked this. But if I add one more record here with the same name, and routing policy is again latency, and this time I will pick this IP address. This is the IP address of the Mumbai. Same name, but now we have a two IP address, and we have to tell this IP address a computer right now is running in Mumbai. Okay, and let's say this is India web server. Okay, now guys, from here you will see some uh, interesting decision taken by the DNS. Okay, now anybody who is trying to access my site, who is in India or nearby India region, maybe in Singapore, maybe Japan, okay, your DNS will give only the IP of Mumbai region, because you have a less latency or low latency in India. But anybody from European region, or maybe from Brazil, or maybe some US or Canada region, try to access this site, you will be internal routing to, or routed to, or connected to the server. So one record, but based on uh, not the country, based on the latency. Okay, based on the latency or the distance, you can say they will will give that particular IP address to you. Okay, that's what guys is happening behind the scene. Okay, so let me create one more record here. Now we have two record, and now guys, if you again try, anybody want to try, and you have to try guys after 30 seconds. Why 30 seconds? Because maybe if you in the last, if you tried already, okay, your DNS has given this IP to you, and your local cache server maintained for 30 seconds, because I have maintained 30-second TTL. After 30 seconds, your cache clean, and then when you try, so anybody from India or nearby India country, now this time you'll get this IP, and because you will get this IP, you'll get this IP. I don't know my case is clear or not. Now guess here. Now my case is clear, and I can connect with this guy. Or because right now I'm in one of the city in India, so my DNS automatically detector I'm from India, so they have given this IP address to me, and they connected to the Mumbai center. Okay, but same name if you anybody try from US or some from that west region, right? You will be automatically directed to the other IP. So the based on the latency and distance, this routing policy work in this. So the big organization, if you have multiple footprint of your customer base, okay, this is the one of the great setup we can do. And guys, for us it's so simple to implement, right? But if you talk about if you talk about AWS perspectives, lots of internal database or internal conditions they are checking, right? A lot of database they have to maintain, right, to check this decision. And maybe lots of things they have to do behind the scene to check this decision. But for us, it's so simple to use and very much powerful service. And guys, we have one more survey that look more like a latency routing policy. So there is one more a routing policy, okay, but they have a little bit different use case. Okay, if you want to take a decision per country basis, okay, so for example, if I want anybody, okay, as a client or as a source IP who based from India, okay, anybody from India, they always connect to IP1. Anybody from US, they always connect to IP2. Anybody from Australia, okay, they always connect to IP3. Okay, now it doesn't matter they are they are less latency or not. Maybe I launch IP1 here, IP2 here, IP3, and somewhere in this continent of Africa. Okay, so I want anybody from US, they always connect to this IP. Anybody from Australia, they connect to this IP. Anybody from India, they connect to this IP. So if you want to take the decision that is taken by DNS, and the decision is if your client base or source come from India, connect to IP1. Okay, and this kind of routing policy is known as geolocation. Based on geolocation, my DNS will provide the respective IP. So guys, DNS use case is mean, right? Is providing the IP. But before guys, DNS provide IP to you. For example, if I run this ns lookup command, DNS will always give the IP to. Okay, this IP they provide. But before they provide IP address, what internal routing policy we have provided to our hoster zone in the DNS Route 53 services. Accordingly, they give the IP address to. And after DNS give IP address to you, DNS duty is completed. Right? That's all DNS say, my duty is completed. Now this is your lookout of your computer, how you connect to this IP. Okay, so this is your lookout. But I will give the IP to you. And right now, because I am from India, so and for me the latest latency low latency is the Mumbai. So they have given a Mumbai IP to me. Why? Because we have used latency routing policy. But if I create one more new record, and they had the routing policy is a geolocation, and let me use the word called g.r.com. And I am to say, because if I use geolocation here, you see a location keyword come up. And here you can choose per continent wise or per countries wise. So if I say here anybody from India, right, come, okay, I will connect, let's say, to this IP. Maybe this IP is the US, right? But my plan is to connect with IP, because maybe mostly guys, sometime most of time every country has their own policies. Maybe some of the data is not allowed in US, some of the data may not allow in Dubai or UAE. So you, in your website is saying, but for the UAE you have to hide some content or hide some images or data. So you can write here in this IP address, So if the request come from Dubai or UAE, just connect to this IP, because in this IP we have the same website, but some of the content we have hide because the company or country policies, regulation doesn't allow. So in this kind of use case, this concept is very much useful. So we'll ask them to connect to this IP. Okay. So if the customer come from India, we connect to this IP. And let's say this India web server. Okay. Or I can say for India web server. It would be anywhere, but it is for India. So one record created. Okay. And let me create one more record, same name with G. And again, I'm using geolocation. And anybody, let's say, come from maybe come from US or Australia, for example. Okay. So if anybody come from Australia, then I will provide a different IP address. This one. Okay. This IP address. So like this, yeah, guys, per country wise also you can create a record. Now, if I go and connect to this name, okay, because my source system will come from India, so automatically, guys, they connect to me with this IP address. Because they connect to this IP, you can see this is, guys, one of the reason why I printed IP in my script. Even though if you go to command line also and try to look up with this host name, you will see you will get this IP. Or I can say you connected to this computer, and this computer we have given to the India or for the India. Okay. So this is all about, guys, the routing policy. Every routing policy I explain you detail with all the practicals and almost all the main use cases for this routing policy. Okay. So normally none of the training actually we discuss in very much detail about all the routing policy with the practical. So I try, guys, my best to explain you every bit of the policies here. Very interesting, very much useful also. Okay. So so multiple, guys, concept we discuss today. Metadata, user data, and multiple routing policy of route 53. Okay, let me do take one more of quick topic here. Most of the part I already explained to you, but if you want to set up a private domain name, okay, so how can you do? Obviously the limitation is private, so from public world you won't able to connect, but within your lab, VPC, I can say, okay, because you guys know VPC. So within VPC, any of the computer can connect to other computer, either with their private IP or either with their private domain name. But for this, you have to configure private domain name. I can say you have to host private domain name or private hosted zone you have to create in a route 53 service. 53 service. So how can you do? It's pretty simple. Just go to route 53. In your dashboard, if you see, you have two hosted zone, right? One domain name I will purchase. Why two? Because I have used some other domain name for other thing. But if you click on hosted zone, okay, and if you see here, there's two domain name here. This one we have already used. So I'm going to create one more hosted zone here. Okay, and hosted zone means we are going to create a database or the record in the DNS for which domain name. Because my domain name is private, a private is never routed to the internet. So you can use any private domain name. For example, if you use this IP, even though this IP is public, but if you use this IP in your private world, nobody from the outside world can connect you. So you can use this network or this IP in your private, even though this is a Google IP, but you can use because it's not visible. So technically, somehow it's not legal also. Because if you're using private world or private network, always use a private IP in the range that I told you, class A, class B, class C. But you can use any IP because nobody can connect to the outside world to your IP. And to the public world, they have never conflict. So in the private world, you can use any IP. That's what I'm talking about. It's not good practice to use any public IP actually, but you can use if you want. Similarly, in the private world, if you want to create your own personal domain like google.com, you can also use this domain also uh, to to create own DNS of this domain name. Because this is a private, nobody can come in the from the real world to you. Okay, so it won't conflict, but somehow it's not legal because mostly hackers do this to do some kind of phishing attack. There's a different point, but you can do it. Okay, so I'm not taking this kind of domain. This is actual domain available in the real world. So what I'm doing here, some randomly domain name I'm picking here. Might be possibility they might not be there. So let me use a domain name called mylwtest.com. So I believe this domain name is not used by anybody, or I'm using this domain name uh, for my private network. Okay, so I'm putting here my Linux world test.com. So this domain name I am creating here. Okay, or for this domain name I'm creating a DNS database. And first of all, you have to select, you want to go for public and private. And obviously, if you want to go public, you have to first purchase. Okay, and obviously you can purchase only if it is available. But my plan is not to go public. My plan is to go for private. And private is only connected within your network, and that network is called VPC. And what is VPC? You guys know VPC have multiple labs, subnets. Okay, and from within any of the subnet in one VPC, this guy can connect to each other. Okay, so and that is the reason whenever you create a private hosted zone in the route 53, they will always ask which VPC you would like to associate. Okay, so you have to tell which VPC you want to associate. Okay, and go guys, for this demo, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one more new VPC here to show this demo. Okay, so what I'm doing here, let me first very quickly go to VPC. Let me create one VPC here. And you guys know how to create the VPC. This class we have already discussed in very detail. Okay, but right now we can create a VPC with the wizard, because by this we can very quickly create a VPC. And guys, wizard has given you multiple different way, or multiple different kind of uh, use cases they given you. So I'm going to use first use case, where they will create only one subnet for me in one VPC, and the subnet has a public subnet, means have internet connectivity, means they will automatically create um, internet gateway, everything for you. Okay, so this wizard means just one click setup. Otherwise, you guys know everything how to create step by step the VPC. So I'm using this wizard to create this. Okay. So guys, only thing is you have to give some network range. So again, I'm going for this by default network range, whatever they're giving to you. VPC name, let's say my DNS VPC. Just for I'm testing for the private DNS. Okay, and this is my public subnet. I'm picking some of the range from this guy. Okay, and let's say I'm going for one data center. Okay, and this is a public subnet in my DNS VPC. That's all, guys. So, so one click, guys, entire VPC is created. So this screen is very quick way to create. Automatically get a VPC, subnet, internet gateway, routing table, everything they update for you just by one screen. Okay, so one click, VPC created, and if you guys are they're setting up all the thing, and finally VPC has been created. So this VPC we have just created, and inside this VPC, this subnet created. Okay, and and if you see this subnet, this subnet has a routing table, and routing table has option to go anywhere in the world with this internet gateway, and internet gateway is also connected and attached to this VPC. So guys, this concept we already discussed, so I think you guys remember this, but everything is configured. That's the great thing. Okay, so let's go and use this VPC in the route 53. So what is my plan is? My plan is that in my VPC, my DNS office or DNS VPC, okay, I'm using launching some computers, and this computer will have a private IP of the range I have given, the range 10 network range. Plus, I also want, let's say this computer will have IP 10.0.0.1, but I also want to give this computer a name. This called host name, and I want my host name of this computer, okay, would be, for example, server one dot this domain. I want this. And because our plan is from this IP1 and IP2, they can connect to each other with the IP, or they can connect to each other with the name. And I'm using this name within the network or within the VPC. Nobody gonna come connect from the outside world internet. If this is the case, then the private hosted zone you can use. That's what, guys, we are doing here. So in the Route 53, I'm going to create one more hoster zone. This time, this is a private. And the domain name, you can pick anything I told you. But here in my case, I'm using my LW. Let me use my LW.com. Okay. And, but you have to tell this domain name, right? For example, my LW.com, this one. Okay. I'm going to use in which VPC. Okay, so that's what you have to tell here. And they're asking here which VPC you want to use. So in my case, guy, I created VPC in Mumbai because VPC we create per region. And in Mumbai, there's a 3 VPC, but I would like to use in this particular VPC. And good thing is, guys, okay, you can use this DNS or this domain name or private domain name in multiple VPC. So if you want to use this domain in other VPC also, you can keep on adding. That's a good thing, right? But I'm adding in one. Like that's so, guys, this is a way to create a private hosted zone. Okay, it's been created. Now what I'm doing is it is just a DNS there configured for us. And obviously, guys, in the DNS, you have to create a record. Create a record. Guys, for creating the record, obviously you should know the IP address. So what I'm doing here, I am going to launch 2 computers. One might have this IP, one might have this IP. And after picking their private IP, now we don't have to work on the public IP because this is a private, so to work on their private IP. So I'm pick their private IP, and their private IP give some name. But this name, we have to create a record, and this record I will create in my DNS. But for this, I have to first go to my EC2 service, because this VPC is in Mumbai. So obviously you have to launch the instance in Mumbai only. So I'm launching this instance. Okay. Important thing is I'm launching this instance in the VPC where the DNS is working. Because I attach this DNS database to this VPC. Okay, and I'm launching. And if you see here, guys, in the VPC, I already created one subnet, so one come up. And I also attaching public IP so I can test my application. That's the only use. Otherwise, we don't require this guy. Okay, so that's what we have configured here. And if you want to do some web server configuration, if you want to do as such, we don't require, right? So let's forget. Okay, and this is my private OS one. SSB because I have to just log into this guy, and because I have to log in, I'm attaching a private key because I would have to check that my system is working or not. And one more, guys, computer I want to launch. And if you want to launch one more computer like this, so just select this computer, and there's option, guys, in the AWS. Okay, in the instance setting, uh, more like this. They keep on changing the options. Launch more like this. Okay, so if you want to launch more computer with the same way you configure this guy, so this option you can use. Okay, so automatically, guys, everything is set up. So I'm launching one more instance in the same way. Okay, and launch this, and again attaching this guy. So two guys instance has been launched. Okay, two instance have been launched, and both the instances I have given the name called private OS1. Okay, and if you see guys here, this instance have a private IP, this one. Private this one, right? So and so let me write here. So one of my computer private IP is 179. Okay, and second computer private IP is 112. Okay, so from this computer I can connect to this computer. But both a private IP or both belong to same subnet or same VPC. But nobody from the outside world can connect. That's part I already explained, guys, in my VPC classes. So for this, guys, let me do one thing. I am first let me log into this computer, and because right now I'm in internet. If you want to log into this computer, we can't use the private. So that is the reason I am using a public IP here. Okay. So let me connect to this instance. So I finally actually landed to this computer, and what I'm trying to show you here, from this computer I can connect to this guy. Okay. So from this, if I try to connect to IP 179, I can connect, but obviously guys it won't work because of the security group and the firewall. So very quickly, let me fix the firewall for IP 179 and security. This is my security group. And because you want to allow ping, you can allow ping, or maybe very quickly just go and allow all. So just go and use ping, or where is all traffic, so it won't create any issue here in the terms of firewall. Okay, so if I again ping, yeah, we have a connectivity. But you guys know, we don't want to remember the IP addresses. I would like to remember the name. Okay, so if you want to give this IP a name, so you can do ping or SSH with this name within the VPC, the terms of connectivity. So here the use of a private DNS come in play. Okay, so I'll go to my private DNS. Okay, and I would like to give all the computer the domain name, this one. So I'm going to create a record. Okay, and here record is, let's say I would like to give my computer name, let's say server 1. And the IP for server 1 is 10.0.0.179. So 179 I'm giving server 1. That's all. And these are routing policy. There's no meaning of geo latency here because there's no public, but let's go for a simple routing. Okay, and let me change the time 30 seconds. That's all, guys. This is the same thing we are doing here. Okay, and one record created. And let me create one more record. Okay, and the record is server 2. And this is I'm giving to IP 112. So 10.0.0.112. Okay, second computer will have this name. So two record, guys, we have created. Now both the computer, guys, can connect to each other with the IP or with the name also. Okay, so last time, guys, I tried with the IP was working great. But if I try to ping now with the name also, that's called server1 dot my lw.com, you can see, guys, it is also working very fine. Okay, very fine. Even though you can do NS lookup to find, you can see this output come up. And if you try to find the NS lookup of IP2, this IP come. And obviously, if you try to do NS lookup of IP3 or server 3, there's no record in the DNS, so there's an NS domain. NX domain means there's no record form. So technically, my private domain working good. So within the VPC, any of the computer in this VPC can connect to each other with this name also. Okay, this is one thing. But one more thing, guys, I just want to tell you here is, okay, that is by default. nature of AWS private DNS. Guys, can you hold for a second, please? And guys, one more last thing for today. That is, this is the by default nature of the AWS. Whenever you launch any instance in the AWS, okay, they will give you a private IP, and they will also give a private DNS name also. So AWS has their own internal private DNS created under a domain name called cloud dot sorry compute dot internal. Okay, for example, in our case we had created a domain name called mylw.com. Similarly, it is not visible here, but inside the AWS cloud they had created one DNS with the hosted zone name called compute internal. Whenever any OS launch, whatever IP they give you, okay, so with the with from the IP they drive this host name. It's not the guy's number, it is a string, it is a host name they drive, and they give this name to you. So they say if any computer within the VPC want to connect to this instance, either they can use your private IP or they can use their private DNS name. Okay, so technically it means it means there's two DNS running. Okay, one DNS is giving this host name that is internally managed by AWS cloud. This is called AWS internal DNS. And one more DNS also running in the AWS but is managed by us is this one. And both are giving the same IP. And guys, that is a reason that is a reason if you ping to this name, okay, so if you see guys, uh, internet DNS give this IP, but first they drive to this IP. Okay, because this name is coming from our DNS and this name is coming from AWS internal managed DNS. So in every VPC they create this kind of DNS for us, and we have this domain name. Okay, but if you don't want to use this bigger name, or if you don't want to use this private DNS, okay, because you already created for this VPC your own personal DNS mylw.com. Okay, and if you don't want to use this particular DNS, okay, so what can you do here? Okay, so guys, here we can take the help of VPC. Because this IPs come from VPC. So VPC is the one who decide in this VPC okay, which domain name we have to use. So very quickly, as you want to give you one term here. So whenever you launch any operating system, okay, this operating system will get IP address. Okay, and this operating system will get the gateway name or gateway IP. This operating system will get the domain name automatically. So normally, guys, your operating system will automatically get these information. And those these information, guys, dynamic come from a service called DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So somewhere, guys, inside your VPC, one DHCP server running. So whenever any EC2 instance launch, this instance will contact to VP service, so DHCP service, and this is the one who give the IP, your gateway, domain name, everything. So this DHCP is the one who will provide these information to your OS. Okay, and this DHCP, guys, is running inside the VPC. So it means if I click in this VPC, I will land it to my VPC page. Okay, so this is my VPC, and if you click in this VPC that we created right now, and there's an action, guys, we can see one option called edit DHCP open option set. So your VPC is using this DHCP. Okay. So if you click in this DSCP, so behind the scene, they are using a VPC called DOP BCA something. There's one DSCP already created behind the scene. Okay. So where you can see this DSCP. Okay, guys, this is the VPC piece where you create routing table subnet. If you go down, there's an option called DSCP option set. If you click here, and this is the DSCP related setting they have given to us. Okay. So what can I do here? Okay, I can there's no SS option to edit this guy, so I can create a new one. Here I can give, let's say, my DSCP for my LW, something like this. Okay, and here I can give my domain name. Let's get lw.com, or whatever domain name I have used here. So I'm giving this a domain name. So whatever we use here, my I don't know what we have written. So my lw.com I'm telling. So I'm telling my DSCP server, they're running behind the scene, and say if anybody come to you, obviously VPC will come to you. Okay, and any instance launch in your VPC, provide this domain name only. And plus DCP can give your DNS name also, NTP server also. So if you know anybody guys about DSCP, so lots of information you can write here, but only one information I am adding here. If anybody come to you, you have to provide this domain name. Okay, so some DSCP, you can think one new DSCP we have created. Okay, now if I again go to the DSCP option, this new uh, DSCP we have created. But DSCP guys is a new one we have created, but nobody is using right now. So again, I go to my VPC and I'll tell my VPC, okay, and say now from onward, you have to use this DSCP, the DSCP that I created right now. Okay. And you know what happened, guys? As soon as your VPC use new DSCP, and now this new DSCP is saying for your VPC that any instance who launch in this VPC will have this domain name automatically. It means any of the instances you launch in this VPC, guys, one of the instances I launch in this VPC is this one. So what happened, guys? You will see automatically, if I refresh this guy, it's not coming up. And this is running in this VPC. Maybe it takes some time, or maybe I reboot. Okay. Let me check one more setting. Sometimes they disable. Okay. So I go to my VPC again. And let me go and check. The AC option is the new one. That's what I wanted. Let me check one more option here. Edit DNS host name is enabled. Is enabled. Nice. And edit DNS resolution is enabled, right? So you'll see, guys, after a certain time, this will automatic update. So in your EC2 instance, let me again go. Maybe they might update it, or maybe after reboot, or maybe after you launch a new one, they will automatic update. Okay. So if you go to your operating system here, this domain name automatic update. Okay, so let me show you very quickly, quick way. Maybe after some time, because you're already learning, or maybe after a reboot, it will come up, or let me launch a new one. Okay, so whenever, guys, you launch any instance in this VPC, okay, I'm just getting public IPs to see the connectivity. Okay, so what you will see, let's say DHCP1, it will come up. So it's not compulsory, but if you don't want to use the internal pre-created DSCP or domain name, I can say, for AWS, you want to use your own only, then you can do this setting. Now, if you go to this OS, you will see it is not coming. I think something I missed here. something I missed definitely here, right? I think it is work normally. So I'll very quickly go to my VPC. Okay, and in this VPC, I'm using this domain set, and this DHCP option set um, is using this domain name. I think it's look pretty clean, right? Let me do one thing because this set I have already tested with this one also, this same example, and was working fine. Very quickly, let me change to my DHCP option to this one. This is also the same way I created. Okay, and let me go to my issues. So if you want to do this, is again not typical we have to do, but if you want to do so, this one you can do it. I don't know why is it is not coming here. Let's wait for guys sometime. Maybe typically the till date what I've seen, same time within same time they update. Maybe they might be updating, or it might take some time, but it will update for you. But it is just only to present here, or it is only you don't want to use your AWS internal one. This is also one of the use case. uh, but by default whatever the extra DNS you have created, it by default work for you, that I already showed to you. Okay, but if you also want to update here, that was, it is taking some time, but yeah, definitely it will update. Okay, so guys, this is one of the meaning of the DNS option set also. Okay, so that's all guys, for today. Lots of concept of DNS and private and other concept I explained to you. Global accelerator I also think today to complete, but I think we have discussed already lots of concepts. So global accelerator guys, we will continue from the next class. Just try this DSC option. It's not so much so useful, but I just wanted to show you one more extra option. It will work, or maybe just wait for some time, it will definitely work. Any questions guys, if you have, you can ask me. And so let me check guys. I am not able to get proper queries. Same questions again, repeat again, again. So tell me more about DSCP. Piyush, actually, this is the AWS class. So DSCP and all those concepts is very general topic. So I try to create one YouTube class in my IC Rise about DSCP, so you can learn there. But here, discussing more on DSCP would be unwanted wastage of the AWS time. Does any change occur in IP? No, no, Piyush. DSC option set is just to way update your internal AWS managed DNS that I would like to use now this domain. Okay. So in the IP perspective, they won't change. Yes, Abhishek, I believe AWS Ansible Lab from Red Hat, they put in the private DNS. Okay. So I'm not able to get guys query related to today's topic. Can we check access and boot log for Docker? Yes, you can check Surya, but Docker actually, when you more understood Docker actually won't boot actually completely. Why I'm saying this? So maybe in my some of my Earth class, I will talk more detail about this. What I'm talking about. Okay. Best script run every, yes, guys, is again good question over here. So the script that I provided in my instance, that is the that is the user data script. Technically, it always run. So whenever you boot the OS, every boot they run. Okay, so that is the reason is a good practice in your script. Always write the condition. For example, when you installing the HTTP software, before you install the software, ask check the software is already installed or not. Every boot time they run for you. Okay, so yes, guys, user data script always run. The college has reopened how to manage college and art both. You have to prioritize, guys, right? You think you have to set your priority, right? Which one gonna help your career and future. uh, this one is gonna tough to learn, understand. Don't worry, Jatin. This concept is a base foundation of what I mean by base foundation here. uh, this same concept of using DNS gonna repeat in other real application when you host there. So automatically we will come back to this topic again and again. So after multiple example, you become very much comfortable. Don't worry. At least we know Route 53 is one service for DNS. That is again more than enough. Okay. So that's what, guys. I I suggest just practice this. Tomorrow, guys, we will go for a topic called geo replication, and some more concept related to DNS and other thing also come up there. Okay, so that's all, guys, for today, and see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Take care.